Hello everyone and welcome to my video on setting up a basic Ubuntu server. In this video I'm going to show you guys how to create and manage different users on the server via the use of mainly groups and permission settings on files and directories. After we go through that, I'm going to go ahead and install a couple applications, mainly SSH server on the server, so that we're able to SSH into our server from our client machine over here on the right. Now generally you could set up your SSH server so that you could remote into it using your normal username and password. However, in this video I'm going to show you guys something a little more secure, that being public key authentication. So we're going to, once we have our SSH server set up, we're also going to install the client on our client machine over here on the right. And from there we're going to go ahead and generate a couple SSH keys, one being the public key that we will then move over to the server so that we can securely log into the server via SSH. So getting right into it, we're going to go ahead and log into our server machine. Most of the work that we're going to be doing here is going to be on the server. We'll only really hop into the client machine after everything is set up on the server. So once you're in the server, go ahead and open up a terminal. So now that we have logged into our server machine and we have a terminal window open, the first thing we want to take care of is making sure that our account has the proper level of access that it will need in order for us to do any kind of maintenance or add any kind of features or anything we want to the server. With that being said, our server account, as it comes fresh out of the box, is already part of the sudo group, so we have no problems there. I'm just gonna go ahead and type it in just to make sure, and yep, we're already part of the sudo group. But just for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and do a sudo user add test. They don't need a home directory. And we're going to type in groups test. So test is only part of its own group, as it should be. However, if we want to go ahead and add it to the sudoers group, we can go ahead and type in sudo usermod ag -ag sudo test. Go ahead and pull up those groups again, and we'll see that test is now part of the sudo group. This basically means that we are able to now log in under the test account and preface any command with the word sudo, and we will then be given permission, or root permission, in order to do anything we wanted on the machine. Moving on from granting permissions though, we'll be moving into our example, and part of our example includes creating two groups, one named dev and one named tester, that will each have two users in there. And from there we will then also create new directories in which we will give those certain groups different levels of access to those folders. So I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but let's go ahead and start by creating the groups first. So in order to go ahead and create the groups, we'll just type in sudo add group dev. Alright, that's one done. And same command, just type in tester at the end. And so now we have our two groups, dev and tester. Now that we have these two groups set up, why don't we go ahead and populate them with a couple of users. So in order to do that, we'll type in sudo user add, I can't type, user add -m because we want to give them a home directory, -g, and type in dev and dev1. So this right here is basically creating a new user with a home directory and adding them to the primary group of dev, which we just created up here, and naming that user account dev1. And we're going to go ahead and do that a second time for dev2. And now that we have all of our devs put into their respective groups, we're going to go ahead and do the same things for our testers. So basically same command, just change up the group to tester and change the name to tester1. Same thing again, except tester2. Now that we have our users placed in their proper groups, let's go ahead and create those two directories back in the home directory so that we can start divvying out some permissions to these different users. In order to do that, I'm just going to go ahead and clear my workspace and move into the home directory. And so right here is where we're going to make a couple of directories, one being dev_files. Oops, probably should have prefaced that with sudo. And make another directory named tester_files. Now for the sake of this tutorial, we're going to change the group that these directories belong to so that we can more easily apply permissions afterwards. So in order to do that, we'll of course need to preface it with sudo, and the command for this is change group -r dev /home/dev _files. So this command right here is changing the group that this directory belongs to the dev group that we had created not too long ago. And so we're also going to do the same thing for our tester files as well. I believe the name for that group was tester, and we'll give it the same path. Well, the path for the tester files, if I can spell correctly. Now when it comes to adding permissions to these different directories, for the sake of the tutorial, the dev files directory will only be accessible by users in this dev group, meaning that only users in that group will have read, write, and execute permission. As for the tester files directory, that will be relatively open, as dev and tester users will be able to open those files and as well as execute them should they choose. So in order to go ahead and do that, let's type in sudo chmod. Let's start with the dev files. We'll go ahead and type 770 and hand it the directory. So that 770 means the user will have full access, the group will have full access, and the rest of any other user on this machine will not have access to that directory or its files. Now I can go ahead and do something similar for the tester files as well, except in this case we'll leave it totally open for any user in any group or anywhere else on the machine, really, for them to be able to view these files. Now that we've got all of our user and permission settings out of the way, let's go ahead and move on to installing the applications that we will need. So in order to get started, we'll go ahead and type in sudo apt-get install ssh. Now that should grab the OpenSSH server, and we'll go ahead and install that. After that gets installed, we're also going to make sure we have Python installed. Oops, made a typo there. Alright, and it looks like Python is already installed and up to date on this machine. So last piece of software we'll need is Terminator. Now that we have all of our software installed on the server, I'm going to go ahead and clear this up and move on over to the client machine. Now that we're in the client machine, we're also going to go ahead and type in sudo apt-get install SSH, and we're also going to install the OpenSSH server package. Now that that's done, I'm going to go ahead and clear all this away. Now that that's done, all we have to do is set up our keys. So we go ahead and type in ssh-keygen. Yeah, that file path looks good to me, and I don't need a passphrase just for this tutorial. And right here we can see that is created our public and private key right up here. This public key we're going to be moving over to our server machine. Now, in order to get this public key moved over to the server, we're going to need to know the IP address as well as make sure that they have a connection in the first place. So if everything is set up as I believe it should be, it should have a good connection between these two virtual machines. And just to make sure, I'm going to ping 192.168.1.218. And it looks like I'm getting a good connection here, so that's good. Clear that away. So now that we know that we have our established connection, we can go ahead and move over that public key securely by typing ssh-copy ID, and we'll send it over to the server account at 192.168.1.218. Go ahead, yes. There is no password. Oops, sorry. There is a password. And alright, it looks like the key has been added successfully. So now all that we need to try is just typing SSH and typing in server at that IP address. And as you can see, it didn't even ask for any user authentication or any credentials because we already had that public key moved over, so it was able to authenticate securely, and now we are logged into our server machine, as we can see right here. Anyway guys, that's going to be it for me. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope this helped you create your Ubuntu server for anything you might need, whether it be web hosting, storage, anything you really need. So thank you again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.